morning. Welcome to Thursday edition of your breakfast show on Leadership Television inside Nigeria. Today is Thursday, November 2025. And of course, my name is Winifred Ugbebo, your host on the program. Without wasting much time, we head up to Leadership, Nigeria's most influential newspaper, where we always plug off the flagship program from. And of course, Leadership's leading story is still on the developing story on the abducted Kebbi Schoolgirls. And today's story says, rescue Kebbi Schoolgirls orders now. Labour Congress Sultan tell government. Shetima, the vice president, says we'll bring back abducted girls. Honor slain teacher who was on a visit to Kebbi State yesterday. Nigerians should speak with one voice to confront common enemy coming from the SGF, Akume. The story is on page 4 of Leadership. Beneath that leading story, we have the picture of the PDP headquarters at Wadata being condoned of by police yesterday, following clashes by factions in Abuja on Tuesday. Electricity Commission uncertainty looms as vice chair. Commissioner's tenure expires December 1. And the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, says, I have right to revoke, relocate land. 4 family members killed, 1 rescued in Kano fire. Reps want free medical services, stipends, tax exemption for senior citizens. And that story is on page 7 of Leadership newspaper. Reps want free medical services, stipends, tax exemption for senior citizens. Merchants, SMEs can use multiple points of sale terminals. And that takes us to the business story on the business desk on the cover of Leadership. Low demand limits power generation to 5,000 megawatts coming from Adilabu, the Minister of Power. Nigeria's power generation remains limited to approximately 5,000 megawatts despite a transmission capacity of 8,500 megawatts. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has confirmed. At a media conference on the sidelines of the Nigerian Independent System Operator, NISO maiden stakeholders engagement in Abuja on Wednesday, Adelabu said that while the country's transmission infrastructure has significantly improved and can wheel up to 8,500 megawatts of electricity, it is the low domestic demand and distribution challenges that continue to constrain power generation. Adelabu announced that Nigeria successfully executed the synchronization of its national grid with 15 West African countries, with the first test run of 4 hours on November 8, 2025. The feat enabled the linking of the West African Power Pool (WAP) system, opening up new avenues for competitive energy trading, foreign exchange earnings, and increased private investment in electricity generation, as well as creating job creation opportunities. That story continues on page 7 of Leadership. Low demand limits power generation to 5,000 megawatts. Adilabu, the power minister. Atop the masthead of Leadership, Tinubu postpones G20 trip over Kebbi Kwara attacks. Governor Yusuf presents 1.36 trillion naira 2020-36 budget to Kano Assembly. That story runs on page 7 of Leadership newspaper. We move inside Leadership to page 3, where we have our stand. Today's stand is on Wike Yerima face-off matters arising. Of course, the story, trended for so many days over that trend. Of course, we started seeing so many cut-offs. They always say that Nigeria, they carry last. There was no limit to what Nigerians' creativity can go. We saw different shades of that face-off between the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, and Lieutenant Yerima. You are a fool. I'm not a fool, sir. Well, it's created times for lightheartedness despite the crisis that generated. Let's take some excerpts from today's stand in Leadership. Wike Yerima face-off matters arising. The clash between the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory FCT Nyesom Wike, who was an official assignment, and a very junior naval officer, Lieutenant Ahmed Yerima, is unfortunate. Still, it highlights the lingering influence of military hegemony in the nation's political life years after the reinstatement of democracy in the country. In a democracy worthy of that designation, the military is expected to be subordinate to political civilian authority. That seems not to be fully ingrained in the psyche of Nigerian soldiers who still carry on as if the uniform is an instrument of willful insubordination. A section of that otherwise disciplined establishment still carries on as if they are above civilian political control. Now we head up to the stand in our stand, where the paper actually takes a stand. The minister should have been more restrained in his response, as we believe that, uniform or not, every human being deserves respect. And this view is not inconsistent with honoring our military for their very important role in our collective defense. We are compelled to know that Nigeria is technically at war with terrorists. Recently, a very senior military officer, a brigadier general, was slaughtered by terrorists on Nigerian soil. Others were killed in an ambush. Ordinarily, this ought to have been perceived by the military as an affront and reacted to as such. No, it is seen as part of an occupational hazard. The nation is complaining that there are not enough soldiers to ward off the impudence of terrorists. Yet, the few available are used for personal duties by the high and mighty in the establishment. This is unacceptable. So they stand in Leadership newspaper on the Wike Yerima face-off and matters arising. From today's stand, we move over, we go swiftly to the back page of Leadership, where we have Being Blunt with Muazu Elize. Muazu Elize is the group managing director of Leadership Newspaper Limited, and his comment and his column today is on MAGA. We fade our guests again, talking about the Kebbi 25 school girls kidnapped. MAGA, we fade our guests again. And taking our quote from that, he said the Nigerian government must take all necessary steps to protect education from attacks. For Kebbi State, which currently has 1.06 million out-of-school children, accounting for 67.6% of the total children in the state, amidst a very low literacy rate of about 20.51%, which makes it one of the worst in the country. The MAGA school attack couldn't have been more devastating. Quotes from today's Being Blunt with Muazu Elize on MAGA, we fade our guests again, just like we fade Chibok girls in 2014. And still on the Being Blunt with Muazu Elize, on the footnote of his column today, we have Indifon has been served justice. Indifon, in case you recall, is the Professor Sirin Difon, a former dean of the University of Calabar Law Faculty. He was actually sentenced for sexual harassment and cyber crimes. And today's bluntness is actually commending the justice that has been served on him. Before we leave the back page, let's visit Ghana Must Go. Curacao becomes smallest nation to qualify for World Cup news. And Ghana Must Go asks, meaning nothing, just that Nigeria did not qualify. Africa's most populous nation, did not qualify, meaning that Curacao, the smallest nation, has qualified for the World Cup. Congratulations to that small nation. We move ahead to another paper we have on our lineup, and that concludes review of Leadership newspaper this Thursday. Don't forget to log into www.leadership.ng for continuation of those headline stories. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is Vanguard newspaper. Still a developing story on the Vanguard cover story. Kebbi Kwarat attacks hot Tinubu trips. Awaits VP DSS. Police reports on incidents. Will use state apparatus to rescue our daughters, Shetima. Local government chairman releases names of abducted Kebbi students. JNI decries abduction of Kebbi schoolgirls, demands government action. Bandits attack church, kill 3, abduct many in Kwara community. Angry youths block Ilorin Kaba Road over attack. Governor Abdulrazak condemns attack, soldiers take over Kwara community. Leading story on the cover of Vanguard newspaper this Thursday. Of course, we have the picture of a congratulatory message to the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and they are wishing him 68 years birthday celebration. Aganga Ayak Akande orders storm Lagos for Olufasan's book today. And still on Vanguard, federal government has lost grip on northern security, coming from Olawepo Hashim. Ex-presidential candidate console Kebbi Kwara victim says terrorists now dictate life across northern states. And that brings to a close review of front headline stories on Vanguard this Thursday. For more, log into the website of Vanguard newspaper. We move ahead to the next paper we have in our lineup, and that is the Daily Times. Daily Times says Kwara church attack, General Uba's killing, others may further destabilize Nigeria. Coming from the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN. Manufacturers warn of 3 trillion naira loss over plant sachet drinks ban. That story is on page 4 of the Daily Times. Manufacturers warn of 3 trillion naira loss over plant sachet drinks ban. And atop the masthead of the Daily Times, judges singing Tinubu's praises, assault on national dignity, coming from the SVP of the Federation, Abubakar Atiku. Judges singing Tinubu's praises, assault on national dignity. Of course, it's no longer news that during the judges' conference in Abuja recently, the judges were singing, "On your mandate we stand." And of course, the former vice president taking umbrage at that says is an assault on national dignity, coming from Atiku Abubakar. Lastly, on the cover of the Daily Times, Kevin Okere Springfield said to set deep water offshore asset to government of Ghana. And that brings to a close review of one headline stories on the Daily Times newspaper this Thursday, November 20, 2025. For more, log into the website of the Daily Times. The next paper we have on our lineup is The Punch. It's still a developing story on Kwara Kebbi abductions. Federal government blames U.S. as kidnap outrage spreads. Federal government blames United States as kidnap outrage spreads. Tinubu cancels foreign trips. Troops storm Kwara after bandits key to abduct 35 worshippers. Shetima Kebbi Kwara governors visit families. These are kickers to the leading story on today's The Punch newspaper. Kwara Kebbi abductions. Federal government blames U.S. as kidnap outrage spreads. We also have the same congratulatory message to former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan at 68, gracing that cover. Well, we'll move ahead to the masthead of The Punch. And beside the masthead, terrorism police tightens Southeast security as Kanu knows fate today. Wike slams Turaki as police seal PDP secretariat. The two stories runs on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. And that also concludes review of front headline stories on The Punch this Thursday. For more, log into the website of The Punch. The last paper we have on our lineup this Thursday is The Guardian. The Guardian says outrage over rising abductions, attacks as army rallies 24,000 recruits. Outrage over rising abductions, attacks as army rallies 24,000 recruits. The story is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Cross River to begin forensic audit of civil servant certificates in January. Health workers strike will continue until federal government reviews heads. Over 6,386 cargoes detained by MPF, that is Nigerian Police Force Customs, incur 472.5 million naira daily demurrage. 230 million Nigerians to unseat Tinubu defecting governors, El-Rufai says. El-Rufai has been silent all this while, but his voice is heard now. He says 230 million Nigerians to unseat Tinubu defecting governors, El-Rufai says. Northern groups reject FEC's lopsided road projects. That story is on page 35 of the Guardian. Northern groups reject FEC's lopsided road projects. Governor Yusuf presents 1.36 trillion naira 2026 budget. We move to the masthead of the Guardian. SMBLF fears Nigeria drifting towards one-party rule. Alleged Christian genocide. Federal government accuses U.S. of inciting violent groups. Federal government states local governments share 2.09 trillion naira acts October revenue. And that also concludes the review of front headline stories on The Guardian this Thursday of November 20, 2025. For more, don't forget to log in to the website of The Guardian at www.guardian.ng. Well, viewers, all too soon, we've also come to the end of today's program with our newspaper review segment on Inside Nigeria. Don't forget to join us same time, same station for another fresh edition of the program. My name is Winifred Weber, your host on the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio.